My name is Ria, and I work as a project coordinator in a mid-sized advertising firm in the city. I've been here for nearly 4 years, and during this time, I've seen people come and go, ideas rise and fall, and projects succeed and collapse. But there has been one constant in my journey here, my boss, Mr. Arjun Mehta. Arjun isn't the kind of boss who fits the typical mold. He doesn't strut around barking orders or sit hidden away in his office with a "Do Not Disturb" sign. He's in the middle of it all, at the long desks, in the brainstorming sessions, at the late-night meetings when everyone else wants to go home. He is the hardest working person I have ever met. At first, I thought it was just a facade, something he did to motivate the team. But over time, I realized that his dedication was real. He was the kind of leader who refused to ask us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. If we were working late, he was there. If we had to deliver a presentation on short notice, he was up at 2 a.m. making slide edits. But the truth about him, the story of why he worked so hard, I only discovered slowly, piece by piece. I remember one campaign in particular. It was for a luxury car brand, one of the biggest accounts our firm had ever landed. The pressure was enormous. The client wanted something bold, unforgettable, but they gave us only 6 weeks to deliver the concept and final presentation. The whole team was nervous. Some whispered that it was impossible. But not Arjun. He gathered us in the conference room, his voice steady, his eyes sharp. "I know it looks impossible," he said. "But impossible is just a word. We'll make this happen. Together." And then he worked harder than all of us combined. He was the first one in the office every morning, often before the sun had even risen. I once arrived early at 7 a.m., only to find him already scribbling ideas on the whiteboard with a half-empty coffee cup beside him. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his hair was messy, like he hadn't even gone home the night before. Late at night, when most of us dragged ourselves home to collapse in bed, he was still there, checking designs, reviewing strategies, calling vendors. But what stood out the most wasn't his stamina, it was his attitude. He never complained. Never once said, "I'm tired" or "This is too much." Instead, he encouraged us. He joked with us when we were stressed. He bought us food when we were too busy to eat. And when someone made a mistake, he didn't explode. He simply said, "Okay, let's fix it. Mistakes mean we're trying." One night, close to the deadline, I stayed behind with him. The office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the scratch of pens on paper. I finally asked him the question that had been burning inside me for months. "Sir," I said cautiously, "why do you work so hard? I mean, most bosses would delegate, but you do more than all of us combined. Don't you ever get tired?" He leaned back in his chair, his face half in shadow under the office lights. For the first time, I saw something softer in his expression, something almost weary. "I get tired every day, Ria," he said with a small laugh. "But tiredness is a luxury I can't afford." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then sighed. "When I was your age, my father lost his business. He trusted the wrong people, and everything collapsed. We went from a comfortable life to struggling to pay rent in a tiny one-room flat. I watched my mother work herself sick, taking extra jobs just to keep food on the table. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. Not for my family, not for my employees. That's why I work the way I do. Because I know how quickly things can fall apart if you stop pushing." His voice grew quiet. "I don't just work for me. I work for everyone who depends on this company. For the people who put their trust in me." I didn't know what to say. For the first time, I realized that his hard work wasn't just about ambition or success. It was about responsibility. It was about carrying the weight of others on his shoulders. The campaign ended up being a huge success. The client loved it, and it opened doors to even more opportunities for the firm. We celebrated, of course, a big office party with music and laughter. Arjun was there, smiling, raising a glass. But I noticed that he barely ate, barely sat down. The moment the speeches ended, he slipped out quietly, already on the phone with another client. That was Arjun. Always moving. Always working. But even the strongest people have limits. About a year later, we were in the middle of another big project when Arjun collapsed in the office. It was late evening, and he was standing by the printer when his knees buckled and he hit the floor. The entire office panicked. We rushed to his side, and he waved us off, muttering, "I'm fine, just a little dizzy." But we insisted on calling an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor said it was exhaustion. Nothing more serious, thankfully, but a warning sign. They told him to rest, to slow down. Of course, Arjun being Arjun, he was back in the office 2 days later. But something had shifted. He still worked hard, but I began to notice small changes. He took short walks during lunch breaks. He actually sat down to eat instead of working through meals. And occasionally, very occasionally, he would leave the office before sunset. I think collapsing scared him. But I also think it reminded him of what he'd told me that night. He worked not just for himself, but for others. And he realized that to keep carrying that weight, he needed to take care of himself too. Over the years, I grew not just as an employee but as a person under his leadership. I learned discipline, resilience, and the importance of owning my mistakes. I learned that hard work isn't about burning yourself out, but about staying committed to something bigger than yourself. Arjun was more than my boss. He was a mentor, a role model, a reminder that leadership is about service, not power. Even now, when work feels overwhelming, I think of him. His tired eyes, his steady voice, his quiet determination. And I remind myself of his words, "Tiredness is a luxury I can't afford." Because of him, I know that hard work isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, day after day, no matter how heavy the weight feels, not just for yourself, but for the people who depend on you. And that's why, whenever someone asks me about my career, I always smile and say, I was lucky enough to have the most hardworking boss in the world. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.